Well, happy Monday to you. Thanks for joining us here on the Market Day Report and here on RFDTV and Rural Radio. I'm Marlon Bowling with you. We're going to talk about what to expect in our open here this morning. We'll get the trade underway at the bottom of the hour. We have Rich Nelson on the line right now. He, of course, is with Allendale Incorporated in McHenry, Illinois. And this week looks to be a rather sizable week when it comes to the ag markets here, Rich. We have USDA coming out with their crop production. Now, I guess admittedly that'll largely be related to South American production, but also the big supply and demand report will be coming out, and that's going to be this Thursday, I believe, at 11 o'clock Central Time, noon Eastern Time. And then, of course, later on this month, on the 29th, and all eyes are looking forward to that prospective plannings report and the quarterly stocks report. The 29th, that will come out at the same time, noon Eastern, 11 o'clock Central. Other than that, what's the market going to be focusing on here this morning?
You know, beyond those issues, I think we were talking about, of course, Argentina, as we always are. Kind of newer thing on the list here for today's discussion, maybe a little more focus on the NAFTA discussions that we'll be wrapping up today in this latest round than we normally would be talking about. So that's another issue, in addition to the potential tariff issues on some of the metals here. So a lot of stuff lined up here for this week.
Do you think that will, in the end run here, really have that much to do with the ag commodity trade? I mean, I know China is a big buyer of U.S. soybeans and pork and beef, but do you think that they will actually shut it down?
You know, for ourselves as well as probably most of U.S. agriculture, I think the answer is very clearly no. Most are assuming that a lot of these concerns are valid for right now, but probably won't turn out to be a major problem once it's all said and done. So that's the general approach for us as well as most of U.S. agriculture, but we are just simply pointing out, well, what if? So on this end, no, I don't think this will be a major factor for moving our prices right now.
I wanted to walk through the Globex trade from last night and show everybody what the prices have been doing overnight, and it's been very narrowly mixed. Not a whole lot to talk about overnight. We have, for example, the May corn unchanged at 385 1/4. Your new crop December, well, now it's 1/4 cent higher at 404 1/2. That's not a big move at all. Now, if you look at the soybean trade, on the soybeans, we have the May now 3/4 higher at 1071 3/4. September now 3 higher at 1056 3/4. And let's take a look at the wheat trade here as well. On the wheat, we have the Chicago May now 3 higher at 503. We have the July 3 higher. Kansas City on the May wheat contract. Right now we're trading 3 1/4 higher at 537. July 3 1/4 higher at 553 1/2. You folks want to stay tuned because later on, of course, John Jenkinson will be in, and he had a chance to visit through the Southern Plains last weekend. He just got back last night, and he'll have a lot to talk about in that regard with how dry things were. He even sent me some photos. He may share them with you of even some charred areas that had burned here over the weekend. So stay tuned for that. That'll be coming up here in the broadcast. Looking at the Minneapolis wheat trade, we had the May contract overnight about 1/4 cent lower at 620. July down 1 1/4. Cotton market overnight, we had the May contract there 42 higher at 82.51, and you had December 13 higher at 77.18. Real quickly here, Rich, I noticed where it looks like a private forecaster has decreased their production estimates for Argentine production on corn and soybeans, but they increased it for Brazil, but not as much as they lowered it in Argentina, right?
I think that's the case right now. And a lot of people are pointing out that, especially, I think Bloomberg Newswire came out on Friday afternoon with their own estimates for this report, which included our estimates as well as everybody else. And general trade discussion as far as these numbers. Argentina, I believe they have at 48.5, so obviously lower than USDA's most recent 54, but they do have Brazil raising up to an average guess of 113.9 million tons, a little higher than USDA's most recent number of 112. So certainly a lot of people talking about the South American issue on a very valid concern discussion point here.
All right, Rich, we'll be back in just a moment, and we'll be talking livestock when we come back right after these messages. Let's rejoin our conversation with Rich Nelson of Allendale Incorporated in McHenry, Illinois. All right, Rich, I want to focus now on the livestock trade. The early penny calls that I was seeing this morning on the wires called the cattle and hog markets kind of narrowly mixed. They didn't know what to expect here today. And as we wrapped up last week, the cash cattle trade got very quiet, and it was basically steady with what we had seen on Wednesday. That had been, let's see, on Wednesday, what, about $2 lower than what we had the previous week. But the beef market, the wholesale beef trade, seemed to be fairly solid throughout the week, didn't it?
It sure did. Aside from Friday's small little stumble, keep in mind last week's trade was up $4.15 for choice beef and up $1.82 for select, and that included a small stumble here for Friday. So overall, great gains for beef last week, no doubt about that.
We have a table, I believe, of the 5-area weekly average cattle prices as we wrapped up last week, and these are provided by USDA. Now, this is actually a look at the midday update from USDA on Friday. And for the live steers, it looks like they had sold about 29,000 head with an average weight of 1,416 pounds. So the average price on those steers worked out to be $126.80 per hundredweight. Now, meanwhile, on the live heifers, about 18,000 head had sold. The average weight, 1,295 pounds. Average price was $126.47 per hundredweight. So not a whole lot of difference between the steers and heifers at the end of the week. On a dress basis, we had steers. We sold about 9,388 head, according to this report, with the average weight there, 917 pounds. The average price, $204.30 per hundredweight. Meanwhile, the dressed heifers had about 5,400 that had moved there, and the average weight there worked out to be 842 pounds with a price of $203.98 per hundredweight. Do those catch your attention in any way from those numbers that you saw, maybe the weights or the prices on each category?
I think that might be some of the discussion points right there, some of the weight discussions there. But as a whole, on the price end, looks to be last week's trade for the most part in line with most numbers we had been hearing about. So we have stepped down a little bit from the previous weeks, which ran 128 to 130. We do have a little more supply lined up these next few weeks, so we'll see if this how well these prices can hold up in the face of what should be a slow rise in supply as we go into March here.
I had heard that the weights had come down a little more than expected last week. Was that true?
It was, and we did see them go from roughly about 1.1% higher than last year down to, on some of the steer and heifer numbers, just over last year, maybe 0.2%. So we are still higher than last year on the weight side, but those are coming down now.
How about on the hogs? As we take a look at the pork carcass cutout values as we got into the weekend here, it seemed to be kind of a mixed affair for the pork cutouts, where we had the cutout values themselves going about 73 cents higher. They were priced at $78.11 per hundred. The loin market actually gained over $3.50. The bellies down 59 cents at $120.17. What are you going to be watching for?
And actually, it will be that belly discussion because we had that sharp break on, I believe it was Wednesday of last week, and that's where cutouts were down about 209. So in terms of these numbers, we're looking at this overall loin market as well as the bellies for this week's trade. We do expect a recovery in bellies, but gosh darn, based on last week's trade, we have to have a small note of concern right now about this pork discussion.
All right, thanks, Rich. Rich Nelson of Allendale. Janet, we are getting ever so close, about 5.5 minutes away
All right.
from kicking it off.
See what Monday has in store.
You bet.
Thanks, Marlon.